welcome Nature Kids and our bigger, wider community. So glad you can join us in for today's Changemaker interview. And we have on our couch here at home in Kuranda on Jabbergai country, Koa Windsong. So Koa is an elder in our community. We're so glad to have him back after all this time he's spent many years up here in the bush and rainforest, teaching so many people in our community and other people who have traveled afar to learn bush skills, sustainability, and how to live really close to nature. And he is very good at the principle we're exploring this month, which is observe and interact. So I'm going to pass it over for you to have a bit of a chat, and Sammy's got some questions, but take it away, Koa. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
What's your question?
Well, to begin with, we would like to know a little bit more about you. Can you want to tell us what you get up to in your life? What fills your days?
Doing crafts mostly, like this. This is a really calming thing to do. Yeah, if I'm anxious about anything, just sit down and make some rope.
Yeah, okay.
And I use it to tie my ocarinas, to hang my ocarinas like that.
Which is a beautiful flute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I sit around and I make these out of clay. I can buy a block of clay for $12 or a bit more maybe, and make a couple $1,000s worth of these if I sell them. I give a lot of them away and barter with them, And I play music, like when I'm in the bush, scientists have actually figured out that animals and insects and all the birds and everything don't trust us. When we first walk into the bush, they don't trust us. So you're only going to observe 30% of what's really there, or hear what's really there. But if after a while, it takes about 2 weeks, and they start coming out and see who you are, because they'll start to trust you if you're living in harmony. Yeah. And when that happens, even before that, I'll start mimicking birds that are in the forest around me. And then they come out and want to, who's that bird? What's he talking about? And I get to have a look at them, And also, they'll become my friends and show me where water is, where food is, where there's danger. Especially a little willy wagtail. Man, you can make friends with them.
I've made friends with Willy Wagtail, sure.
and they will so many times show me where food is, where water is, and where danger is. Well, one time I was actually walking along this creek, and there was a rock cliff kind of thing there, and I noticed there's all these little cones hanging off the rocks. And I just got to Australia, so I'm thinking that must be the native bees, And there's little tiny bees, I think, flying all around, and so I started to reach for it, and this willy wagtail has been following me. He comes around and he's like rah, 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 spinning around my head. Don't do that. I didn't listen. And I went ahead and I said, man, they must have tons here. I'll just take a little bit. Whoa, man, I had 40 wasps, paper wasps, stinging me. I got 40 stings.
Oh my gosh.
Luckily, there was a pool, and I was able to jump in there and get them off. But yeah, that was the last time I didn't listen to the
Messenger. Can you play a little
bit?
Yeah.
So you can play melodies. Or you can mimic birds.
That's fantastic.
And like one time I'm playing, I make a lot of bamboo flutes. And I'm sitting in the forest, because that's another way I connect, is playing my flutes to nature. Let them know I'm safe, I'm not going to hurt you. And one time this wallaby jumps over and lays down right in front of me. Now I'm sitting on a log, and I'm like, what? And I looked at him, and he's just closed his eyes, And I just kept playing. And then this monarch butterfly comes along and lands on him and then flutters around. I'm like, what the heck? The wallaby's dead.
Oh.
And I'm like, it's an old one. I examine it, and he's got scars, and he's an old fella. And he's died of old age.
Yeah.
And this happened 2 more times in my 20 years of being in the bush.
Yeah.
Playing my flute, and an old wallaby comes, lays down, and dies in front of my flute.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the connection we really have. That's a natural, normal human experience that we've lost.
Yeah.
You know, and it's about getting it back. Starting to trust, that don't hate toads, you know, don't hate Singapore daisy, don't hate all the things that have come here after the invasion, you know. They all have purpose. Like, say, for instance, the senna plant. Do you know the senna plant?
Which is it?
Senna.
Senna.
It's one of the main, it only gets about this high and has a little yellow flower, but it has razor sharp roots.
Okay.
And it came here because we compacted the soil. And it sends those roots down and splits them out, and it allows channels for the nutrients to come back up.
And water to go.
Yeah, so the forest can, lantana, create soil faster than any other plant. It came here on purpose. There's no mistakes.
Yeah.
The earth will always heal itself if we just let it.
Yeah. Yes.
We don't, you know, like a lot of people hate these plants, like lantana. It has so many uses, and you're not going to get rid of it. You know?
Yeah.
So why have a war? Why have a war anyway? You never win a war.
Yeah. There's always fatality.
Yeah.
And you were telling me that you can get dry firewood under lantana when it's raining.
Yeah, on the bush, just on the bush.
Yeah, right.
Just break off a dead piece. It doesn't absorb water.
Ah.
So, like, I'll be walking through the bush, and it's been raining for a couple of weeks. And I set up camp, go straight into a lantana bush, bring them off, and I got fire.
Amazing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I weave baskets from the roots.
Yeah.
Man, they are really strong
Okay.
and beautiful because they're really curvy and knotty, and you know what I mean?
Already have that,
Yeah.
shape.
And what else? Well, I've made shelter, like down south on a property next to the Border Range National Park. I was camped right next to the park. And I took, let's see, what is it? What's that? Loricane.
Oh,
And
yeah.
made a hoops,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And then I put stakes in, and then I wove the walls up about that high with lantana.
Yeah.
So I had lantana walls.
Yeah.
You know?
Excellent.
Yeah.
And then I wove the rest of it in with lantana and packed that with mud and then termite mound. And then I made myself a little fireplace, you know.
Yeah.
I used a lot of things like cow shit.
Yeah.
The property had a lot of cow shit. And people that own the property hate cows. You know, they're environmentalists, so they hate cows, they hate lantana. And I wanted to show them, don't hate,
Yeah.
use them. You're never going to get rid of
Available
it.
resources.
Yeah.
That's
You're
it.
turning that from a problem and you're turning
Just
it into a solution.
Yeah.
They're seeing it as a waste and you're turning it into a
Yeah.
resource.
And to have these kids come down, or young men, come down and see me sitting in my little shack with a little fire going, you know, doing my crafts, totally not a drop on me, you know what I mean? They're going, oh my God, you know? So, yeah, it changed them, and they started looking at lantana a lot differently.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I'm enjoying all these stories. Thanks, Koa. every story that you're telling us is just teaching us so much of, showing us permaculture in action, all these principles in action. So can you share with us and our community why you do these things and go about, your life in the way that you do?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story, actually. I touch on it in my book, but...
Yeah, let's show the book, actually. And people can buy that book from...
Amazon Kindle.
Yep. Or from me.
Yeah.
I'll get it to you as well.
Yeah. If you give us your snail mail, we'll mail you one.
Yeah.
But what was he talking about?
Why?
The why.
Your why.
Oh,
It's in your book.
well, I grew up on a self-sufficient farm with my grandmother and grandfather.
Okay.
So I learned about gardening and all that. We didn't bring anything in from outside. We grew cover crops, legumes, and rotate crops.
Right.
And then we put the animal, because we had horses to plow the fields and stuff. put that in and mix it up with our compost and put that on. That's all we had. We didn't have to go out and bring things in.
Excellent.
But then when I was 10 years old, my uncle, they raised the taxes on them, so they couldn't pay the taxes. So my uncle came and tore down their log cabin and built them a 2-story house and bought a tractor and got rid of the horses. My grandfather couldn't stand the smell or the sound of the tractor. And the first time my grandmother started to go down the stairs, she fell and died.
Oh my gosh.
And in the process, I watched her for a couple years. She went from being really fit to really fat. Because now she didn't walk over to the neighbors with a cherry pie. She called them up.
Right.
And she didn't do her laundry by hand, which we used to have a lot of fun doing. You know, joking around in the creek, you know. Got her a washing machine, you know.
Right.
So gave her all these, thinking he was doing the really good thing, you know, making her life easier.
Conveniences, yeah.
But then I had to go live with my parents, who were total opposite.
Right.
Brand new house, brand new cars. You know, he built houses for rich people.
Right.
And they didn't love me. That's why they gave me to my grandmother.
Okay.
Because I was a mistake.
Wow.
And so anyway, so I'm trying to fit into that world,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm 19, just started smoking that herb that everybody, you know, and my mind was opening up, you know, and I had a wife and she was 8 months pregnant.
Okay.
And I felt like I needed to pay for this baby. I didn't want to have welfare. I didn't want welfare. I didn't want government help. I was real fiercely independent, still am. And so anyway, I started dealing the ganja from the Mexican border up. Anyway, make a long story short, I got shot with a gun, 9 millimeter.
Right.
I went in here and came out my back and paralyzed me from my waist down.
Right.
And it went through 3 different nerves that controlled different parts of the body. So I only have half the muscles in my legs and half the feeling.
Okay.
They said I'd never walk again because it went through the main artery that supplies the spinal cord. But luckily I found a physical therapist who knew I could.
Okay.
And he had his license taken away because he would go into hospitals and tell people that they've been told you can't walk. You can walk, just come live with me and I'll show you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isometric exercise and mental.
Yes.
You can do this. 3 months he had me walking.
Wow.
Yeah. But, you know, then, so I went to Hawaii with my new baby and family. And then I met a friend who actually met in college. And he convinced me to get out of this world, to just get out and grow our own food, find wild food, make our own clothes. And this is in the early 70s, you know. And so I went, yeah, okay, let's do that. So we went 1,000 miles down the coast of Mexico. He had a wife and baby too. And bought horses and rode for 1,000 kilometers through Mexico. Came to a river and couldn't cross. And because it was too swift and all the locals were telling us there's crocodiles and da-da-da. So we were talking to other backpackers and stuff, and they were saying, go to Guatemala, there's avocados as big as your head, and they drop into this lake, and you can get a canoe. And so I went, yeah, let's go there. That's paradise.
Yeah.
And because we were vegetarian, too, at that point.
Okay.
And so anyway, we sold the horses, and we had a little bit of ganja, just a little tiny bit, 10 grams. And my friend put it in some heavy clothing that he didn't need and mailed it to a friend, and they opened the package. We went to jail for 2 years.
Wow.
They deported the women and children in 3 days, put us in prison, never told us when or if we're ever going to get out. We escaped twice. That was a funny story, but we escaped twice. And so then we ended up spending most of those 2 years in a box because they hated us. They put us in a box this high, this wide, and from me to maybe 2 meters long with 6 other people.
Whoa.
Because the prison's overcrowded,
Yeah.
there's no plumbing, there's no light, and there's a little air thing. And so anyway, it's the pain is beyond belief. So my friend was in the cell next to me. Our spirits would leave our bodies and meet and talk about why do people do this to people?
Yeah.
It's bloody crazy.
Yeah.
And we decided money. That's the only reason. It's not because this plant is bad for you. It's because they make huge amounts of money. They're going to get a bunch of money to get me out of jail, you know? So we went, okay, not going back to that earth. We're not going back. Why would we go back to that pain and horrible situation? And then we heard a third voice.
Okay.
And this third voice I now perceive to be the consciousness that moves through all things.
Right.
And it said, no, you got to go back to the earth. This is what's happening. We lived for thousands upon thousands of years, like the indigenous people here, in total harmony with the earth. Thousands upon thousands, way longer than we've been here doing this, you know, untribal adventure. But this consciousness explained, look, it's all about lessons. Every living thing, every single thing in the universe is learning a lesson and growing from it. And because humans are the most conscious, our lessons are complicated and longer. This 6,000 years is a lesson. Don't keep pooing in the same place. You create disease and da-da-da-da. Don't overpopulate don't cut down the forest and get the soil. All those lessons. And in an indigenous society, a lot of indigenous people only had one leader. Well, that's a lesson. We need everyone to sit in the council, even the children. You see what I mean? So that we're all empowered. We're all chiefs. We're all leaders and we're all followers. That's the evolution of the human spirit. And we couldn't go there without having this experience. And really, it's only a grain of sand in the time of eternity. We've got a long way to go. And there's no end.
This is it. Yeah.
So that's,
And so that brought you to Australia, and you've been living that since. You've been
that's another thing.
Studying from the bush, learning, teaching people survival skills. And
yeah, exactly. Because this voice said, go out and learn how to walk in total harmony with nature, your mother, and teach all the people that come to you that are attracted to you. Don't go out and run, just teach the people that are attracted to you when you're sitting on a beach weaving a basket, you know? And form a tribe, rebirth a tribe. Because that's the other lesson. We die if we're separated. Separation is death. Tribalism is eternity. That's, you know.
Integrating our lives.
Yeah. And
connected.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing, you know.
Yeah. And the big why. What's kind of the journey to be getting here and
but it's also, you know, it's like, for how many years have I held this vision? I still haven't found my tribe, you know. But then wait a second. I realized not too long ago, since I've been back from the U.S., I've realized I do have a tribe. You're here. You're my tribe. You're my tribe. You're my sister. You're my sister. I do have a tribe.
Yes.
Maybe we don't live together and wake up together, but we will. We
Yeah.
will someday. That's the vision.
Yes.
And, you know, what happens in the future is up to us. It is our vision. It's our dreaming. My dreaming is to bring all things back into balance, and that is what will happen. There's no getting around it. We created this whole thing. It was us. Like in the beginning, we were just a solid rock mass for billions of years, and we went, hey, how about we have a different experience? So we exploded and created the universe so that we could have a multi-dimensional experience. We did it. There's nothing outside of us. That's just my perspective.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
I wrote a book about 22 years in Australia. And just going into the bush with that backpack, with a backpack like this, a hammock and a tarp, and a knife. And when I'm in coconut country, I carry 2 hose clamps and a saw.
Okay, yeah.
So when I go in, like Cedar Bay, I went in every year for 10 years. I'd go in and do a coconut fast. But I can't climb the trees. So I put that into a piece of bamboo, cut the coconuts off. And that's all I carried. And then I would learn to live on what's there. I didn't bring food even. I just learned to live. And a lot of these plants I knew because they're all over the world. You know, like lantana. dandelion,
Mm.
grass. All grasses are edible all around the world.
Mm.
You know, you don't swallow it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to just chew up and get the pulp and then spit it out.
Right.
But in a survival situation, there's grass everywhere, and you could live just on that.
Wow. I mean, people are juicing green
Yes.
grass now, right?
Yes.
And people make it survival so complicated. Like there's thousands of books and how to do this and how to do that and first aid. Well, I've healed broken bones by myself. Termite mound.
Right.
Yeah, termite mountain grass.
Okay.
You make a grass pulp, put it on. I broke this bone. Make a pulp during the day,
Mm-hmm.
and then at nighttime. Hang on. Yeah, at night you soak that off, and then you put a termite cast on it
Okay.
and let that set. And then when you're
Sets.
ready, you put that in water, and it comes off.
Mm.
You know.
Clever.
I healed Ross River fever in 10 days. A lot of people wouldn't, think this is a good way to do it, but I got rid of it in 10 days. A girl who was with me had it for 6 months and still has relapses.
Mm.
What did you do?
Neuron therapy,
Oh, urine therapy.
midstream,
okay.
every morning,
Right.
and fasting.
Yes.
I healed it in 10 days, no relapses.
Oh.
Wow.
So everything we need is always within arm's reach.
Yeah.
Mm. Which really leads us so nicely into our next question, because the principle that we're discussing here today is observe and interact. And I feel like nearly everything that you speak about is this skill or this principle is a massive part of your everyday life. For you to have the connections that you speak of.
Yes.
And the trust in nature. Like you've spent so much time and connecting that you've learnt how to nourish yourself and how to nourish your environment around you. You know, it's kind of like a muscle to flex. Like unless we're putting ourselves in these places and practicing and making that part of our life, you go to the shop to buy all your food, right?
Yeah.
Like there's two very different ways of being.
Yeah.
So,
And we miss so much, don't we?
Exactly.
Yeah, like for instance, you go to IGA and buy a mango and go pick a mango ripe off a tree. There's no comparison.
so different.
Grow your own food. You know, like my kids. People used to ask me, how did you get your kids to eat bowls of salad? And I said, okay, this is what you do. You give them, you give a packet of carrot seed, put it in their hand, and you go, look at these little tiny things.
Amazing.
That's going to grow with this big thing. And I had all my kids make their own little garden so they could have their own little experience.
Yeah.
And then they shared.
Yeah.
And when that child grows that seed and watches it grow, comes and nurtures it, pulls the weeds around it, there's no way he's not going to eat it and love it.
Yeah.
And he shows every kid that comes into his space, look what I did, you know.
Yeah.
And that's how I got them to eat all these vegetables. You could put any vegetable in front of them and they could eat it and like it.
Yeah. They have that connection to it.
Yeah, exactly.
They've observed the life cycle.
Yeah, exactly. That's so important to reconnect, to put our roots back into the earth. That's the process. Because we've had them all jerked out.
That's it.
Have other people grow our food for us, build our house for us, make our clothes for us, do our medicine for everything, you know. So, and it's so much fun to be self-sufficient and to do your own thing, you know.
There's purpose and
Yeah.
empowerment.
Yeah, you go, wow, I did that.
Yeah. And when you meet fellow people who are also in this journey, it's like you see each other.
Or even like building a little shelter together.
Yeah.
Wow, it's so beautiful. Or gardening together, you know. So that's why I love the community garden. And I want to keep getting people to come and interact there. Because it's not just a garden.
Yeah, it's a place to connect.
You're bringing community together.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, well, that's kind of touching on the principle of this month, observe and interact. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our community about that principle and how you integrate that into your life?
Yeah. Just being aware in every moment, you know, because really there isn't anything else. All we really have is this moment. And to experience that fully, we need to be there with our mind, with our heart, with our eyes, all our senses, We need to observe that. And when I'm walking through the forest, it's the most, or even through New York City,
Yeah.
it's the safest place to be, knowing where every foot is going, where your hands are going, thinking about what is in your atmosphere, in your environment. Like I'll be walking through Brisbane. This is one time I remember walking through there, but it happens all the time. Even Cairns, anywhere I am, and a plant will say, "Hey, Koa, could you just break that limb off because it's going to have fungus and it's going to attack me?" And if I ignore it, it'll shout at me. And I will have to turn around and come back, get my Swiss Army knife out, and cut that off.
Yeah.
Because it never stops, no matter where you are, or a human being, like in New York City, where there's just cement, and then there's people.
Yeah.
I met a 19-year-old girl that grew up in New York City. She came to Hawaii, and she walks up to me at a health food shop, and she goes, "Are you Koa?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, I grew up in New York City, and I've never seen anything wild except for a fly and a rat."
Wow.
I went, "What?"
Wow.
I mean, I heard this before, but not
Said to you.
And she goes, "Will you teach me?" So I was living in this canyon where you got to hike down into it. It's the second deepest canyon on Earth, carved out by the wettest place on Earth.
Okay.
But it's carved out on the dry side. And the Hawaiians lived in there, and they planted jackfruit, coconuts. And then the Chinese came in, and they planted papayas, passion fruit. So it's paradise.
Yeah, okay.
And it's a national park. And anyway, I lived in there for 5 years. And I was probably in there for about 3 years when I met this girl. And so I said, "Are you ready?" And she picks up her sleeping bag. That's all she had. I said, "Okay, let's go." And it takes me 3.5 hours from the top to walk down, but it took us 2 days.
Wow.
Because when she would see a butterfly,
Ah,
she would just stop
wow.
and go, "Oh my God." It was so beautiful to watch,
Yeah.
but incredible,
Unraveling.
every single thing in nature. She would stop, and I'd have to keep her going,
You're gonna see more of this. This is fun now.
And after 2 weeks, she's like, because I'm, talking about tribe, "I'm your tribe, Koa. I'm going to live with you forever and grow old with you." And I went, "Right, I've heard that before." And we walked back up, and a friend of mine, we're hitchhiking back to the beach, and a friend of mine pulls up, and we get in, and anyway, long story short, she falls in love with him, and
love took it in a different direction. The power of love, hey?
so I'm still looking. No, I'm not. I got to keep reminding myself that I do have tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And the place will come. So
Yes.
you're manifesting a beautiful little cabin with a veranda somewhere in the Karanda, Koa, Spearwa, Tablelands area.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I would love that. And in exchange for exchanging knowledge,
Yep.
I can do light gardening work, but mostly it's sharing knowledge
Yeah.
Yeah.
And crafts.
and
skills,
crafts,
eh?
lots of crafts.
Look at all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And Koa, you also can you share with our listeners about your Patreon and how that works and why you're doing that?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about it because a friend of mine set it up.
Yeah.
But it's a way of people supporting what I do
Yeah.
in exchange for, like, I'll show them how to weave a basket with a video, and they have access to that.
Yeah.
Show them about bush tucker, or do a talk like we've just done.
Yes.
Like if it's possible, I could get a copy of this and put it on my Patreon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that's what
definitely.
they want.
Yeah.
Yes.
They want to be inspired to live naturally and to take those steps, and they're quite happy to support me financially.
Yeah.
I made that decision a long time ago not to get government support
Yeah.
because, it's like a lot of people yelling and screaming about what the government does, but we're the ones that elect them. We're the ones that support them. We go pay taxes. We do,
Yeah.
stop yelling and change your way of being.
Yeah.
Disconnect
Yes.
as much as you can.
Disconnect to start and connect to something
Yeah.
else.
But that's just my perspective,
Yeah. Many
We've got to always
perspectives.
remember that. No one has a corner on the truth.
This is it. This is it. But on that sharing, is there some advice that you could give our Nature Kids community about being earth carers?
Yeah. Yeah, take your friends and adopt a section, even your backyard.
Mm.
But if you're if you're lucky enough to be next to a bush, adopt a certain section of it and go in there and have an intimate relationship with them.
Yeah,
Like, for
nice.
instance, pandanus, you know? When I wanted to make an intimate relationship with the pandanus, I went into it and harvested the leaves and wove a mat.
Okay.
And then I do my yoga and my meditation and weave a basket on that mat.
Right.
And after a while, and I also roast the nuts. You don't have to roast them. You can eat them raw. They're delicious.
Okay.
But
Wow.
very
Yeah.
hard to get out.
Uh-huh.
But it was a main food for the Aboriginal people.
Right.
So they created a tool. Actually, in the last 300 years, they were trading a metal tool with Indonesia. But they're delicious, and all the species of pandanus, the nut is edible.
Right.
But the fruit will burn the skin off your lips.
Okay.
Oh, that's what
yeah.
I've heard. Okay.
Except
so
for one species, and that's the corkscrew,
spiral one.
Yeah.
Mm.
which is high in DMA,
MDMA.
MDMA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd tell you about that.
Okay, it's in your book.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where were we again? Oh,
Yeah.
adopt, you know,
Yes.
and if you're really getting into it, make your own tools,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and just have a really intimate relationship with that. Learn the birds, you know, make it a game,
Yeah.
you know. How many different species of birds have we?
Mm-hmm.
And what is their purpose? What are they doing? Are they pollinating plants? Are they taking overabundant insects? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's a way of weaving yourself back into nature.
Yeah.
Because like I've said, we've all had our roots. And I'm still in the process, you know, so it's a continuous life journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you know, if I relax, I'll get pulled back into it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You have to stay strong and keep coming back to your source.
Yes.
But don't get angry with yourself or anybody else
Mm-hmm.
if you can.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Well, it's that transition thing
Yeah.
we're talking about. Like this life, we've been programmed and we've come up in a certain society or culture, and so to unravel that, it's transformative and it's a process, and we're transitioning. And
Yeah, and imagine if you were somebody like Donald Trump and you grew up with his parents. You know, it's not his fault that he turned out that way, or his parents. It goes way, way back. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
so we don't need to judge those people. It's not their choice. They had all those choices taken away from them, and now who they are. You know, so the only way you can help them is bring love to them. You know, don't hate them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also they're showing you what not to do.
Yes.
Yes.
That's
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's one last question, which is always a little bit tricky, but can you share with us what might be one of your favorite things about nature? It's hard to pull it down to one, isn't it?
I'd have to say swimming.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I love water, just hanging out in the water, swimming, and just walking through nature. But yeah, swimming.
Swimming. Nice.
Yeah, which I have a swimming pool at my place,
Yeah.
but it's a journey for me to get down there, and I have to wrap my head around getting in a cement pool, but I'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, find me a place with a pond,
Yeah.
just off the veranda.
And natural swimming
Keep putting
pool.
it out there.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Well, Koa, thank you so much for sharing. We could sit together and yarn all day, and there's so much wisdom you have. So Patreon's a really good place for people to be able to stay connected with you and to throw a few dollars your way to support you, because again, when you go out in nature and you're living off the land or with the land and everything's provided for, you're also in a place of trust now in your eldership, where you're sharing and giving your skills and knowledge and your wisdom, and people are giving back to you financially to help you with the basics, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Some rent right now until you get that beautiful cottage.
Yeah.
Humble cottage. What you said, you only need a little space.
Yeah. A couple meters square.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And a little outdoor kitchen. But you can
Yeah.
create all of those
Yeah.
things too, don't you?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I only need a platform and a roof.
Yeah.
I can create the
You do
walls,
the rest.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pandanus walls. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Maybe we could even document that so people can see how the
Yeah.
process of you
Oh, that'd be
creating
awesome.
this,
That
you know,
would
we've
be.
got a camera
And you know what? Just to end it there,
Yeah.
it's like it's a need. It's when you get hungry, you have to eat, right?
Totally.
When you get to be an elder, you have to share knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm serious, seriously.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't just hold on to it.
Yeah.
I have to get out there and spread it around.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
why your book is a really good place to do it.
Yeah.
Patreon's a great place.
Yeah.
And have you got any workshops or, I mean, the community garden in Coranda is a really good place to come and connect with
Yeah.
you. But do you have any other things alive and thriving in the near
Well,
future?
because of the fractured spine, I haven't
Yeah.
been able to hold that space, but I'm getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll start with a weaving.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And in that you learn how to, you go into the bush and learn to weave with the plants around you.
Yeah.
And in that process, you learn how to use them medicinally in other ways.
Yeah, nice.
And then you weave a basket, you know.
Yeah, great.
And then I want to do the bamboo one. I think it's so important to teach people these skills.
Yeah.
All about bamboo, you know.
Yes.
But you know, I think hopefully next month
Okay.
I'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll
Well,
be
we'll
back.
definitely share it.
That's it.
As
We'll
soon
let
as you
people
let
know.
us know, we can do all of that.
Yeah.
Send it out with the
Okay.
social media
Yeah.
and
Awesome.
Yeah,
let
definitely.
everyone know. Thank you.